Good evening. It's 6 p.m. on Wednesday, November 9th. I call the meeting of the DeKalb Township Board of Trustees to order. Clerk, will you please call roll?
My honor, trustee Thurman. Here. Trustee King.
Here.
Trustee Bradlow.
Here.
Trustee McNutt.
Here.
Supervisor Huss.
Here.
Alternate attendance, Commissioner Smith and Assessor Dyer. And what's your name again?
Bill Newkirk.
Bill Newkirk and Julia.
Yep.
All right. Could stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we have approval of the agenda. Is there anyone requesting any changes? All right. Then we will move on to presentations. And tonight we have Bill Newkirk and Associates here with us to review the annual audit. This is our first year with Newkirk, and so thank you for being here.
Not a problem at all. I'm happy to be here. I'm going to run through the audit pretty quickly. I'm not going line by line or anything, but I want to tell you what you're looking at least. If you have a question at some point, feel free to stop me, or we can circle back at the end and review anything. I'm going to start on pages 1 and 2, which page 1 is on my firm's letterhead. Ultimately, when you get an audit, this is what you're paying for. So this is called an audit opinion, meaning that we've gone through the books and records, and in our opinion, it's materially correct. I mean, that means we've gone through, we followed auditing procedures, and based on the evidence that we have, this is a clean or unmodified audit opinion. That's really what you're looking for, or the state or a creditor, anybody that's going to look at this report. The first couple of paragraphs right there on the top of page 1, that opinion, again, is called a clean or unmodified opinion. It means that we didn't find any issues or have any issues with the audit. So really that's what you're looking for there. If we flip to pages 3 and 4, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these financials because this is what's called entity-wide financial statements, where we roll all the funds up into one. So a balance sheet on page 3 and income statement on page 4. The reason I don't spend much time is because if we flip to page 5, now we break it down by fund. This is how you budget. This is probably more what you're familiar with. Those entity-wide financial statements where we roll everything up together, you don't budget that way. You don't really do internal accounting that way very much. So I feel like these financial statements starting at page 5 are more user-friendly. Again, page 5 is a balance sheet. So we have assets at the top, liabilities in the middle, and then fund balance is essentially the fund equity at the end of the fiscal year. Everything I'm talking about tonight will be as of March 31st, 22, and the year then ended. On page 6, this is a reconciliation between the balance sheet on page 3 and what's on page 5. The two main differences are capital assets. So that's an asset, roads, equipment, things like that get depreciated. In the fund financial statements on page 5, we don't record that in depreciation, but you do back on page 3. The other big difference is IMRF. Again, you only record the current expenditure and stuff in the funds, but on the entity-wide financial statement on page 3, we factor in the net pension asset. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. There's a big disclosure on how that's calculated and what that is. But again, that gets recorded as an asset on that balance sheet on page 3, but not on page 5. And then if we go to page 7, this is essentially an income statement on the same thing. We're broken down by fund. So again, this is the way you budget. This is probably a little bit more user-friendly. The third number up from the bottom there is essentially the net income or loss by fund as you go across. Permanent road and building and equipment both had losses, but those you'll see right in the middle of the page, the line for capital outlay. So that's where I was talking about capital assets a minute ago. If you do a big road project or buy a piece of equipment, here it gets expended. You know, you buy a $200,000 truck, $200,000 comes off on this statement. We're back on pages 3 and 4, it gets depreciated over time. So really the big negatives there, if you look at that capital outlay line right in the middle of the page, it quickly explains why there was a deficit in those funds. It's because of a big capital outlay expenditure like that on a long-lived asset. And page 8, again, is a reconciliation between this income statement on page 7 and the entity one back on page 4. Again, depreciation and capital assets and the IMRF stuff is your big adjustments there. So after those financial statements, then we go into the notes. So this is a lot of disclosures. We talk about different assumptions we make and things like that. Again, I'm only going to hit a couple of high points here. If we get to page 15, I've talked a couple times now about depreciation and capital assets. The table at the top of page 15 discloses that's your depreciation schedule. So the top half of that is all the buildings and infrastructure and everything that's on the books. And then the bottom half of that table shows the accumulated depreciation related to that. The other thing that I've talked about multiple times is IMRF. So starting on page 16, there's, I think, 4 or 5 pages of a big long disclosure about everything with the IMRF pension plan for the township. So the IMRF plan, while it's a statewide plan, every municipality that participates has their own account, meaning that how much you contribute, and you essentially have your slice of the pie there that gets calculated based on your actual employees that happen. It's not a big pooled pension plan. It is pooled, but then everyone has their own account within it that they monitor. And on page 19, there's a good table that kind of breaks down. So there's 3 columns there. Total pension liability, column A. Pension liability is essentially what they actuarially calculate it would cost to pay out all the pensions for the employees that you currently have. Then planned fiduciary net position, column B, that's how much money you have sitting with IMRF in your account down there. So at the beginning of the year, it was about 3.4 million. At the end of the year, 3.9. That's actual investments that they hold, that they say, these are for DeKalb Township to pay those. And because the 3.9 in assets that you have there is more than the 3.4 in liability that they're actuarially calculating it'll take to pay those pensions out, that's why you get a negative number, a net pension asset of 527,000 there. So what that essentially means is that your account with IMRF is overfunded. Really common right now, I mean, until 2022, this is all as of, they monitor on calendar year. So this is December 31st of 21. Now the market's taken a dive since then, but the year ended there, you had 5 or 6 years of really strong market performance that a lot of the IMRF pensions are like this. They do build in for market fluctuation. They try to smooth it over 5 years so that like one fluctuation isn't going to cause like a really drastic thing. And they try to bank a little bit extra when the market's good so that then if the market turns down like this year, it doesn't swing way the other way. They try to kind of keep you in between the lines. But that's what that is. And when I alluded to that asset being back on page 3 on that balance sheet, that 527,000 is considered an asset of the township as a whole on that entity-wide financial statement, because you guys essentially have that in the bank above and beyond what they think it'll take to pay out those pensions. I think that's the highlight for the notes. Then we go into required supplementary information past page 20. Pages 21 and 22 are a couple more things on pension. So page 21 essentially is that same table that we talked about, but it compares the last 7 years. You can see, so that far right-hand column, at the top, it's net pension liability and then assets, and then you come down to that same 527,000 we were just talking about. This shows what it's done over the last 7 years, so you can see a trend on that. And then page 22 shows how much you're contributing each year, again, over the last 7 years. After that, starting on page 23, these financial statements have the most detail of anywhere in the report. If you were looking for the nitty gritty of something, this is where you're going to come. So we start with the general town fund on page 23, and this has budget actual and then a variance column, but this breaks it down more than anywhere else in the report. Up front, we just kind of lump all the general government or street and highway expenditures together, where this breaks it down by line item. Nothing really to highlight, but I like to tell people where to find something or what you're looking at here. So if we flip over the rest of the report that's bound in here, we do that for every single fund. We have a budget versus actual schedule with a line item detail of all the revenues and expenditures for each fund.
I have a question. What would miscellaneous include?
Miscellaneous on which page? I'm sorry. You know, I honestly don't know right off the top of my head. It's only $347 for the year. I'd have to look into that a little bit more. it's something, essentially, if it doesn't fit in any of the other categories, it gets dropped into miscellaneous. Normally, as an auditor, $347 there doesn't concern me very much. I never like to see miscellaneous be one of the bigger line items there, because then you probably need to give that better descriptor. But when it's just 347, because on the next page under the assessor, there's $32 in miscellaneous. Again, right off the top of my head, I can't tell you what that is. If you want me to look into it, I can follow up. Okay. Yeah, it's just, if it doesn't fit anywhere else, it drops in there. And we do go through, like I say, if there's bigger stuff in there, we try to get it somewhere that has a better description of what that is. Any other questions? If not, the only other thing that I'd like to take just a minute to talk about, and I think this is included in your board packet, but stapled in the back of the packet, this is required communication with the board. So there's certain things that auditing standards require that I put in writing to you guys as the board of governance for the township. Page 1 kind of explains the reasoning behind this packet and what that is. On page 2, we have a letter. Like I said, there's certain topics. So for example, in the middle of the page, you'll see difficulties encountered performing the audit. We didn't encounter any difficulties, but I have to put that in writing to you. The next paragraph right there talks about corrected and uncorrected misstatements. This essentially is, if we make journal entries or change your books at all, we're required to disclose those to you. And starting on page 4, we have a schedule of the adjusting journal entries that we make. The vast majority of these are adjusting receivables and payables and accruals. If you read, most of them will talk about accruals or reversing accounts payable or receivables. Essentially what happens is your books and records are mostly on a cash basis throughout the year, meaning you recognize revenue when it gets deposited into the bank, and you recognize an expense when a check gets cut out. But in reality, your financial statements are on a modified accrual basis, where if you owe a bill, like let's say that you did a road project or something in March, but you don't pay that bill until April, at March 31st, if that whatever work was completed as of that day, you owe that. So we accrue that as a payable at March 31st. So we as auditors make those adjustments for you. And that's what the vast majority of these are, is adjusting things from a cash basis, how you keep things with your treasurer's reports throughout the year, to the accrual basis that you're required to disclose with the state of Illinois, everything on. The other letter on page 7, if there is a deficiency in internal control or anything like that, we're required to disclose that to you as well. And we have 2 comments on page 8. The first one is really common, and it goes back to what I was just talking about with the journal entry. So preparation of financial statements, by definition, I as the auditor cannot be part of your internal control structure. In a perfect world, you'd have staff that would make those adjustments and then I could audit them. The main reason I have this comment, and what I always stress, is if you're relying on me to make those, which is acceptable, but there's nobody auditing me, right? There's nobody that comes behind me. So there's an inherent risk in the fact that there's not an internal control that double checks. I'll be honest, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes too. So it's, again, it's really common in a lot of governments that I work with, especially smaller governments. You're one of the biggest townships I work with, but this comment is almost universal on the townships I work with, that they rely on the auditor to make some of these entries and do it. So I'm just required to disclose to you the risk associated with that. The other comment has to do with credit cards. We as a firm, I think, test credit cards more heavily than a lot of other auditing firms because of our risk assessment. I always feel like if something was to happen, credit cards is a vulnerable area to it. And we disclose there, the biggest thing is 9 of the 38 transactions were missing supporting receipts. So in a perfect world, when you pay that credit card bill and the statement comes, you'd have all the actual receipts from those purchases stapled to it. We also noted you guys don't have a formal credit card policy. So a lot of governments that have purchasing cards or credit cards will have a policy that tells whoever's handling it that you always have to have a receipt. You shouldn't be charged sales tax. Those are a couple of the bigger ones that should be part of a policy. And then it would have, a disciplinary action or teeth that if somebody's violating the policy, you guys have in writing clearly, in the first occurrence, this is what happens. At some point you revoke privileges, or if it's significant enough. I mean, of determination, I think is often written into those policies. But I think it protects you guys that if something did go south, for some reason, you'd have recourse and a formal policy in place that you could fall back on having to do with the credit cards, so.
Are those credit card transactions summarized some quickly so that you can point us to in the unit?
They are not. So it's not like a number in there. So we do what's called a compliance test, opposed to, we don't test a balance or a number in the report. What we do is we pick 1 or maybe 2 months of activity and we test every single transaction. I don't care if it's $12 or $1,200. We look at every single one and we basically do a checklist. Was it charged sales tax? Do you have a supporting receipt? Was it reviewed and approved by a supervisor? Those kind of things that we're looking at. If you have a policy, we model our testing based on the policy. You know, if it says that, you know, the supervisor has to approve a transaction over $500, we would want to look for that approval over 500. In the absence of a policy, the 2 main things we looked at were sales tax being charged and missing receipts. And that's what we disclosed. Again, just a factual, you know, I can get Mary or whoever else wants, you know, the exact month and dollar amounts of the transactions we looked at, if that is of benefit to you. I think more than anything, the comment is just saying, like, as an overarching, I mean, we only looked at a month or 2 and this was there. It's probably just an area to probably adopt a policy and just shore up internal practices a little bit to make sure you have all those receipts and stuff is my feedback.
One question I have is, you know, you guys were in here a couple different times.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we could do next year to make, you know, help you with that process? Anything that we could do differently?
Possibly. I know we had some confusion. The way that QuickBooks is used by the township, I don't think is the best or most efficient. I think Jody is doing a lot of duplication of effort, and it took us, there was a learning curve because it's first year and we don't necessarily know, but she writes all the checks and does a lot of stuff in QuickBooks. Everything related to payroll in QuickBooks is fine. But then as far as how it gets categorized, she does a lot of manual spreadsheets where the same transactions that she's recording in QuickBooks, she records again in a spreadsheet. And that spreadsheet is actually what she uses to reconcile the bank statements and stuff. And in general was much more accurate than QuickBooks. So I think one of our biggest hurdles was we came in and we're used to relying on QuickBooks and reconciliation and most of the data in there being accurate. And there was just a learning curve with the fact that she's doing most of it in spreadsheets. I know you said that she's possibly resigning or retiring. Like, as you brought somebody in, I think the biggest feedback I could give, or I think it would make everyone's life, not only mine, I think it would improve the operation of the township and make that person's job a lot easier, is to use QuickBooks more efficiently and better, where you wouldn't have to do nearly the work that she's doing in spreadsheets outside of QuickBooks if everything in QuickBooks was done with a little bit more accuracy or cleaned up just a little bit.
Is there a different software package you would recommend other than QuickBooks?
Not necessarily. Again, I worked with 13 townships this year, and I bet that probably 9 or 10 of the 13 use QuickBooks. It's really a common software for the size of entity that you guys are. There are some particular fund accounting softwares that are more specific and geared towards government, that if you were looking for a software conversion, but a lot of times those are more expensive and have an even greater learning curve. One of the nice things about QuickBooks is it's very checkbook oriented, that if you know how to keep a check register and reconcile your bank account, you can pretty much use QuickBooks. Where if you get a more sophisticated software, it takes somebody with an accounting background that knows the debits and credits of things a lot more. So it can, especially in a time of staff turnover, it can just be a lot harder to keep up with.
And I know when we picked up with QuickBooks, we had looked at other providers, and there was one township specific provider that has since pulled out of that.
Okay.
So, and it was, as you say, a lot more difficult to manage to start out with, a lot more training and
Right.
and those kind of things. And I also know that previous auditors, their first year here was a lot, you know, it took, they had a learning curve.
I'm glad.
And then it got down to where it was like, oh, I think last year was, they had 1 day a year with one guy, and they started out with 4
Right.
for like 2 weeks. So
Okay.
I'm probably exaggerating, but I do know that.
Yeah, well, we had 4 for a day or 2 at the end to get through everything, so. Yeah, I mean, that makes me feel pretty good that we didn't, that learning curve did exist for somebody before as well, because we found that a little bit, but I am confident, even if you didn't change anything, I think we'd be much more efficient next year, just knowing what we're walking into and having our file set up a lot better, so.
I have another question.
Absolutely.
So as you started or began the auditing process, did you look at the auditing, the outcome from prior years, or did you just start?
No, I always, even before I submitted a proposal, I think back in February or March, and before I will propose on an audit, I'm always gonna look at the previous year audit to kind of know what I'm walking into. So I had evaluated the prior year audit and management letter before I ever submitted a proposal on the audit here.
Okay, so were they pretty fair? Were they pretty?
Correct. I didn't see anything that I thought was of concern or out of line with the, as far as like the overall reporting, my reporting is very consistent with what they were reporting.
Okay.
Yeah, I was worried when you brought in the big guns, which you did.
All right, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Here's a couple extra copies that you guys can have.
All right,
And then I submitted to the state once it's approved, but then you have to file a copy with the county clerk, so you could take one of those. I just wanted you to be aware that I do not file with the county clerk, so
Okay.
you've got to get that one.
and the signature page, I will send that to you tomorrow.
Perfect.
We can
Okay,
wrap it up.
thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a good night, guys.
You too, thank you.
That's how we all feel when we leave out of here.
All right, next public comments, no one here from the public, so moving on to reports, supervisor's report. Based on what he said, I will start working with Brad to get the credit card policy prepared and be approved at next month's meeting. I want to let you know that our new caseworker, she started on October 24th. Her name is Angel, and she came to us from, she was with the Housing Authority. So that is a tremendous asset to us because, a lot of the times we're dealing with people who have housing situations. And so she's very aware of many topics regarding housing. So that's been a tremendous asset in the short time she's been here. Another thing related to our assistance programs is suburban apartments is becoming more problematic. We have more and more people coming in here who are living in just horrible living conditions with suburban. And so one thing that we're trying to do is in the emergency assistance handbook, we can elect to not give or provide funds to individuals who are living in units that are in violation of some sort of code. So we're able to do that with the city. The city is now sharing with us, every month they're sharing with us the properties that are in code violation. So we can do that easily for city properties, which there is, like 4 pages to the list they gave us. However, it's more difficult with suburban because they're not in the city, and so the city can't go get them violations. So I reached out to the fire department thinking that maybe if there were fire violations, that we could do that, because I know that the DeKalb Fire Department provides the fire protection to suburban. They are not allowed to do that either, to issue violations. So it really does fall on the county. So now that the elections are over and we know who our county public officer, I'm going to go back and start working with them because it's my understanding from talking with people in police and fire and at the city level that they do, that the county does not issue violations there. And just the conditions are absolutely awful. They are, towing cars, doing all kinds of things that makes it very challenging to live there. So I'd like to see if we could be part of the solution. So if anyone has any input on that or has worked with Suburban and has any suggestions.
I have just a question. So what happens to the client who's in crisis if we don't help them? I mean,
We could talk about helping them, if they can find another place to live with first month's rent. But
Basically relocate them.
okay, well, and I'm all for that, but I'm thinking, if I'm coming to you and I'm going, hey, I'm in dire
Right.
distress, and you go, well, we don't support where you live.
Yeah.
Because we really are helping the person.
Right.
I mean, it's tragic that they live someplace that's not. And can we, at that time, every time somebody comes from that place, is there somebody that we can notify?
I am encouraging them while they're here to call, depending on what the circumstances are. I'm encouraging them while they're here to call the health department, file a report. File a complaint, whatever. So that it's on record that has been done, because my fear is that it's just a matter of time before something really tragic happens there that could have been prevented.
I guess my concern is how do you keep people from signing new leases with the place if that information is not available?
A person has to do research before they sign a lease, I think. And I mean, I've seen on, on social media that people do put out there the conditions of Suburban. But if you don't see it, and and it's really, the rental market here is really tough, which I think Andrew can attest to. And so they're the ones with vacancies and, they just randomly increase rents, prices, and
The last place to be filled is usually the worst place to be living in, so,
There used to be a part of the legal office on campus,
Prairie State.
No, it's the tenants,
Houses.
student tenants.
Student Tenant Association on campus. And it was just where a lot of law students, I believe, participate in, and some of the graduate students do. So maybe.
Yeah, what I would like to do is, so I've been talking with Prairie State Legal, and they do seminars on tenants' rights. And so I would like, and then there's this other entity called, I think it's called Fair Housing. They were just out here a couple weeks ago and did a presentation at the library that I sent Erica and Angel to. And so what I would like to do is host a presentation over in that region. So maybe at Westminster or New Hope, so that, we can avoid the transportation issues on those subjects and try to empower people, and make people have, residents have, or tenants have the knowledge of what is and is not legal, and then be connected with Prairie State. So if there are illegal things going on, they know the channels to follow to report those.
Do we know if they're tenant based? I know that we've had some students that lived over there, and they would have never been able to know about this information session that you're gonna have at the church at New Hope, right? They wouldn't know that.
Well, it depends on how we advertise it.
Well,
Because I'm thinking of like signs that we put around the properties there that say what it is, so that it's,
There's enough township right away out there that we can put signs without affecting any property.
well, I believe you.
And
What
still stay out of the city limits of DeKalb.
what I'm suggesting, what I'm saying is that if I'm a student and I'm living in residence hall and I want to get an apartment, I'm just gonna sign up, right? I may not even read the sign. That may be the sign for the thing at New Hope, and if I miss that, I miss that. So I'm wondering if there's another way.
I think it's I've had these issues on Greenwood Acres Drive. One of the nicest streets in this whole community. And the portion of it that's in the county the township road, property owners are in the county. Had numerous calls about people with, abandoned vehicles and things like that. This is really a county board issue that needs, it's no longer a rural county. And they need to change their ways And it starts with the county board. I brought that up. We were in Rich's office with a gentleman who lives out that way asking about what he can do. And I said, you need to reach out to your county board members. I know there's a county board member that is up my way that is a trustee at Sycamore Township. And I think she would be a lot of help. But and they need stricter policies for residential areas and multi-family areas, because they have a lot of these, maybe not in DeKalb, but you know, a little bit in Sycamore that are not out in any village and all over the county that need the county needs to be better prepared or have better rules for people to live in. And so I think they need to change their policy, whether you can get that done. And I think by working with the county board, like Mary said, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I don't no argument there.
Yeah,
I
so,
just think about, I think about students. I think that, city people and like experienced adults probably have less of a challenge finding out information. And I think students that are new to, I just wanted my own apartment, I just want to get out of the residence halls, I think that's more of a challenge.
Yeah.
And if they're gonna stay here, then they certainly become,
and maybe that's something NIU
Permanent
can take
township.
on is, I'm sure there's something on the NIU website that talks, there's like housing and it links to different,
And they publish a housing guide, and I'm pretty
I just
sure
wrote it
that
down, yeah.
the suburban estate is published.
right, so maybe, they remove that.
And I think that along those lines, at least Keen, I don't know if all the students have the wherewithal to know, especially coming from somewhere else, oh, I need to go to the county, I need to go to the township and find out if this is a good place to live.
They don't.
Exactly, and they just said, oh, I want to go to school about it.
Which is a Google search.
Yeah, but yeah, they easy.
If that's your experience, right? If you know to do that, some people don't, believe it or not, they just know that they want an apartment, they don't want to go back
Well,
home.
yeah, and I mean, the people we
So they
work
just-
with, yeah, that's,
At the end of it, easy to victimize
Right.
because they won't
Right.
take those steps.
yeah. So
It's rough out there.
we're gonna,
Out there a lot.
Don't go.
we're gonna see what we can do and, cause, just most recently was working with someone who came in for assistance that they had to send their baby to go live with family in Chicago because it was unsafe living conditions for a child.
Is it okay if I add a few things on the subject? Because I do have some personal experience with suburban people that I know have lived there.
Sure.
Yeah, so suburban apartments has always been awful to its tenants. As you said, they've took people's cars when they're behind on rent, but then how do they go to work to then pay the rent in their car? That doesn't make any sense. There is absolutely squalid living conditions and a refusal to do anything about it. And one of the problems with it is that when you go to their management office to ask about things, which I've done because many of my friends end up living in suburban.
There's
And quite frankly, yeah, no one wants to live there. I think we alluded to it, like it is often a necessity that people move in there. Not that no one does. There are some people that don't Google search it, but most of it is necessity. I mean, I myself looked for a decent apartment for probably 4 or 5 months. I started looking about 3 months before, thinking that would, my old lease, and thinking that was enough. I could not find something for the life of me. I've had to crash with friends in the meantime until I found, a decent place to live. And so I think in terms of affordable housing too, that's a bigger issue that I know the township grapples with. But the other things I can say to actually, address the solution is I'm one of the admins of the DeKalb Tenant Association Facebook page, where there's a lot of concerned tenants, some of which are from suburban, that have absolutely talked to me about some of the problems and things they face. But yes, whenever we go to their management office, there's absolutely retaliation. There's no remorse. And frankly, the people that are in there do not own the building and are not really in charge, right? It's like when you call, some help hotline and you have to wait, go through 6 consecutive layers to presumably get to someone that can do something. That's kind of the brick wall there. And my worry about you all posting signs is that the people that work there are told, from my own experience, to be fairly retaliatory, and I fear they would take away your signs.
And I can thought of that, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, one of the problems that, you know, has gone on for years is in this resource, or in this community, we have tons of resources, and you will inevitably, every third person run into and say that there's no resources here. When there are for every possible issue, there is a solution in this community. And so we have to, if we're going to hold this session, we have to get it in their faces, you know, get it out there, and signs are, you know, we can put it on the radio, we can put it on the paper, we can put it on our Facebook page, but we're not gonna reach a great portion of the population by doing that. So we have to find, and so that was my idea.
Sure.
So,
Can we maybe include, other agencies, like agencies that say to people who are distressed, maybe financially, hey, just look at these places to live? So, I mean, I like family service agency. I don't know if they tell people to live there or not. I'm just using them as an example. So we would invite the agencies that work also with people that would live there. So that it would be.
make them aware of this workshop we're gonna, or session we're gonna.
To do a couple of things, to help them to be able to help clients as they come in to see. So, because maybe they don't know all of the issues, that maybe they're not getting everything that you're getting. And so if we would just invite the other agencies, then
Oh, yeah.
it would be a collaborative experience, and it
Sure.
wouldn't just be the township.
Yeah, we can do that.
It
Well,
would be the
with
township
our
and the
partners.
other agencies that are there.
I think that
Yeah.
inviting county board members,
Right.
they're the people
Yeah,
that-
right.
they're the only people that can change the policy.
Right,
And-
right.
Yeah,
The Derek Highlands that run that department at the county and the county administrator.
Yeah.
but I've already met with Derek Highland and the county administrator about this.
And usually we have Angel who's coming on board and from the house authority, maybe she has some insight.
Yeah, that's what this is snowballed into as a result of having discussions. So we are now, you know, asking people to call the health department when they're here and file that report. And then the health department reports it to whatever authority they have to, and, you know,
And what?
The suburban apartments, mainly rent to NIU students?
no, it's a combination of people. And, you know,
If any.
young people, there's a lot of seniors that live there. I deliver Meals on Wheels there. And, quite frankly, sometimes I'm concerned for my safety, you know, whether it be a structural or just, you know, the untrimmed bushes, what could be, you know, hiding behind there. Last week when I delivered, there was, this god awful smell coming out of an apartment that reminded me of an incident earlier this summer I had. There was a apartment that was completely open, that someone could have been squatting in. It's,
We were out there all last year with the road.
How do they get away with that? Like, the health department has to know.
that's what we're saying.
Yeah, I mean.
Reach out to your county board members. You all have a county board
Yeah.
member. Give them a call.
There- And I will say the problem is not exclusive to suburban. It's especially bad there, of course, because they, given their location, elude a lot of accountability government wise, because they're in that kind of unincorporated zone, but this is by no means just there. And frankly, if you want people to testify about some of the conditions for this meeting that you're having, again, I'm in a lot of, you know, tenant groups because, you know,
Yeah.
it's something that I'm a
It was
tenant.
bad in the eighties when I was in high school. We used to jump in back to those kitty guys out there, so I'm well aware, you know.
And then,
Wow, we did. But there was, the pool was nice.
right.
Yeah.
Those are cool. So,
So, Rich, were you gonna say something?
No,
Oh,
no.
Something like that, I like the pathway like from two angles, so the other places, how can we go about highlighting the places that treat their tenants better too? Like, I don't know if you have like a gold star, the landlord program or something where you can say, because if we don't attack it from both ends, reward the landlords who are doing well, or just.
I think that's pretty objective for us to do that. I don't know that I would wanna get,
The liability, but
Yeah.
I think you're not interested in tangling. with.
all my-
That same publication, DeKalb best.
But, yeah, that's.
all we can do is not provide funding to, by law, what we're allowed to do is not provide funding to places that have violations.
So is at what threshold do we have to cross for that to happen? Or you said no to this?
They have to come and request funding.
A tenant of theirs. I am talking with Brad though about possibly sending a letter so through our software, we can see all landlords that we've worked with in the past. And so I'm talking with Brad, asking if we should send a letter to all landlords saying that, making them aware that we're going to, enforce this policy. And so they would know that.
That seems fair. I just feel bad for the person, and I get it.
Right.
Certainly don't want to see that.
Yeah.
And, I guess you go, well, if you put out, then that really could be a good thing, but where would you go? And,
It's in their best interest to get out of there, and they all recognize that. So I will keep you posted as, this, we may step toward getting this set up.
so I'm sorry, last point. So maybe we need to talk to the city about,
They don't have any control. Yeah.
I didn't even say anything.
Good.
Maybe we need to talk to the city about constructing some housing for people that don't have a lot of money. And I don't mean just low income subsidized housing. Like, I don't mean just like federally subsidized housing. I mean that the city buildings are going up all the time. So as they're talking to developers, that may be an area where they want to talk to developers about constructing some housing.
Well, I think the city's well aware of the lack of affordable housing in this community. And about the, condition of some of these. I think that's what, the crime-free housing, what that resurfaced and the change and everything. And, so,
But it's just a portion of our boundary.
Yeah.
So when you're in the county or the Sycamore, it's different.
this would be a good thing for you to discuss on the Human Relations Committee.
Oh, we discussed it. Not only do we discuss it, we've had, full throttle, conversations
Yeah,
about it.
yeah.
And in front of Bill Nicholas about that.
Mhm.
And my,
This is every community.
Yeah.
yeah, well, okay. I think that, I think there's some places that sort of manage it differently. And I think, given that we're community connected to a university, I think that somehow, again, I'm always the collaboration person. I think there's somebody that, and when I say body, I mean group of people, that can come together with some ideas about how we can tackle this on behalf of the clients, not on behalf of the property owners. I mean, we kind of know what we can do with them, right? We sue, we go to court, they get moved out, we get new people. But people that are living there so that they don't have to, one, endure these conditions, and two, that we can say, hey, we can't help you here. But here are some places that you maybe want to look at, seeing if you can get some options. Because
Yeah, and we do provide we have a list of rental properties that we do provide to tenants who are looking to relocate.
of course,
Yeah, so. Okay, so I will let you know what happens next. Cemetery Restoration Stonehuggers was out here. They're the restoration company that works on the headstones. They came out on the 18th of October and were here for a full 2 weeks and did work at both Oakwood and Evergreen. So, these old headstones, they require a lot of work. So hopefully we'll be in good shape for a while. The Citizens Utility Board presentation at the library took place on 10/18. And so as a follow-up to conversation there, they will come out and do a workshop where people can bring in their utility bills and they help them go over their utility bills and understand and talk about energy savings. On the 21st was the Triad Conference. So, walked away with some good ideas for helping our seniors be more aware of scams. And so hopefully we can take and do some stuff with that. October 25th and 26th, I was in Milwaukee for the Summit on Poverty, which, ties into a lot of the things we were just talking about with suburban. So some really great sessions were there, and I do want to take some of that information and be able to use it with our residents in the future. The checks have been distributed to the human service agencies, and they've been notified that we want them presenting at a future board meeting. Saturday, myself and Angel and Erica will be leaving to go to Springfield. There's an emergency assistance workshop for the TOI conference. We'll be down there for that. And then based on a lot of things that Bill Newkirk was saying, so you do know that Jody is completely retiring at the end of the year. And so I've been having her show me more about what she does so I can better understand her role here. And which she's here 2 days a week, pays our bills. Well, she does a variety of things. And so now that I have a case manager or caseworker hired and will no longer have to do emergency assistance unless, in case of a bind, I really do feel that I can take on the work that Jody's doing, that I can handle paying the bills and, doing that accounting stuff. Today, I met with Kim, who is from Swanson Quality Services. So they provide our accounting services. We get QuickBooks through them. She helps Jody with, as Jody's running into trouble with something with QuickBooks, she helps problem solve that. So I met with her today and she did a QuickBooks training with me and we talked about the process. And so we would we're contracting with them now so that the responsibilities of that contract would grow just a little bit as I'm getting acclimated to the role. And so she would come up and help me with that until I feel comfortable doing it. And then she would have some responsibilities. So what we're paying now would increase slightly, especially in January, February, and March, while she's coming up here and working directly with me. And then after that, it would go back down. So
How does the new role expense compare to what Jody's salary was in the package?
she hasn't gotten me the price yet.
Okay.
So that's what today we, reviewed everything again. And then she said tomorrow she'd be able to get me what that package would look like.
So we're not gonna hire someone for Jody's spot?
What I'm suggesting we don't. I think that I can take that on. That happens in Kim, who I met with today, works with, a lot of townships and, supervisors are the treasurers of the township. And so this is a common role. Yeah.
You know that our previous auditors numerous times, but the one thing they had that we do that was commented on was that the person printing and doing all the bookkeeping, not the person signing the check.
Yeah.
That is because there's no checks and balances that way.
Well, there is. That's what they do every month. They audit.
I'm just explaining what
Yeah.
the old auditor said. I don't know how he felt. I know I'm gonna be doing something different with all the road district stuff and all the checks with that. So that won't be a responsibility you need to take over.
After Jody leaves, you mean?
Yeah.
I was wondering, so when you mentioned that and you said you're gonna pay the lady and then she's gonna stop, not my call, I don't think. I think it's a challenge probably to do two jobs. I think it's probably important to know what's going on. But God forbid, what if something happens, right?
And that's all. It's a challenge to do two jobs.
Yeah, you being the supervisor and doing the,
This is the supervisor's role. I mean, if you look at the TOI handbook, this is something the supervisor does. It's just we weren't set up to do it that way. If we were to go, when we go down to Springfield next week and talk to other townships, this is common. That the
In
supervisor does this.
smaller townships, it is very common.
Yeah.
The supervisor does most all of it.
Okay.
And by giving up the emergency assistance stuff you've been doing, then that would give you more time to absorb this. That's what you said, right?
Yeah, and by giving up the, not doing the emergency assistance, I'm gonna need more to do. That kept me occupied. And if I don't, have that to do,
Be twiddling your thumbs,
Alright.
making money. So the general assistant is it busy? I mean, is it really?
the calls are starting to pick up, and I anticipate it's gonna get even busier as, the cold, when the cold weather comes. I looked at my NICOR bill and my therm's doubled since last year, and so I think people are gonna be struggling to pay their utility bills, so. And with more evictions happening now,
And we have more food, and it sounds like Suburban State can keep them busy here. And the fuel costs are increasing too.
so what, yeah,
Fuel costs and stuff.
yeah.
But,
But I mean, just a bit. And I think with all of this, it's gonna have to be approved by the township anyway, the trustees anyway, so we'll see it and have an idea.
Yeah, there'll be a proposal put together. I just wanted to give you a heads up.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate that. And so we'll have a time to review it and the details. So this is just like first week stuff to let us know what's coming pipeline. We have time.
Exactly.
Okay,
So this information, since you mentioned the conference, I don't believe I received anything. I'll check my email. I don't know.
I did get the confirmation that you're all registered and your hotels are booked and,
Well, can I get a copy?
oh, yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I didn't tell you last year I went, I was all registered, but there was a glitch with the credit card and they were telling me to put my credit card, not last year, obviously.
last year we went.
Right, and Jenny was like,
I paid for a year.
yeah, and Jenny was like, yeah, no, fine credit, blah, 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 so,
Yeah, cause you went there right away. Yeah.
right,
It was-
so,
And I will tell you that I was down there, stayed at the Crown Vic a year ago for a POI board meeting thing. And there was people that waited until 11 o'clock at night to get checked. Oh my God.
wow.
Because of staffing, there was no staffing. So, and I mean, I know whether you're at depending on, they ship people, I think 3 of us stayed at the Holiday Inn Express the last time we were down there. That would probably be information you'll need to know what hotel you're staying at.
Yeah.
I don't know if,
Do we know? Do you-
Yeah. Yeah, so you want me to email that to you tomorrow? Or,
Sure, yeah, well, yeah, so that, I mean, because when I go Sunday, yeah, I guess it's part of.
Know where to go.
We usually, in the past, we've had a dinner as every.
here to,
Oh, okay,
because
okay,
there's so many new folks there that.
okay,
I assume you would talk about some of this.
Yeah.
oh, okay, all right. So I don't want to jump ahead, I just didn't know. And I checked my email, and I'm not always so great about that. But I wanted to make sure that I had done my due diligence. Yeah, well, I appreciate that, especially somebody just would let me know. All right.
and any questions about anything that was in my report tonight?
I have only one more question.
Mhm.
Do we know whether or not, we have an influx of Spanish-speaking clients, and if there's anybody here that can translate?
We do not right now, have an influx of Spanish-speaking clients. And, typically what, I've observed and what Erica has told me is usually a family member or they'll bring someone in.
Oh, okay,
But there is a service we can use if we need to.
all right, perfect. Let's,
Thank you. Clerk's report?
Yeah, I would like to commend the township for looking at the housing issues because that's something that's been a problem we've had for a while. And I'd again like to repeat it to you that you need need any kind of testimony, I'm happy to provide those people and also advertise it in the circles on it, because I know a lot of people that are affected by that. About it.
Highway Commissioner?
I'm sorry, this is the last thing.
Go ahead.
When you mentioned like, that's something you should talk about in the HIC. We talked about it, and one of the things that we did is we worked with Dara,
Mhm.
that group and some of those people as a group to try to come up with some solutions for some other things. So I couldn't think of that in the moment. So we worked with them. So maybe that's somebody we might want to consider connecting with. If
Thank
we're gonna do something different. I'm sorry.
Is it my turn? now?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Building IGA, I know, we have our little, I'm, for lack of a better term, just call it a committee. I know, I finally got finished. A little over 1,000 bills I had to go through to summarize what they were, whether they were for the front of the building, back of the building, different things of that nature. Finally, turned it over for, Karen's gonna make a spreadsheet for me. So then, I'll be reaching out to the 3 other people to try to set up a meeting probably after we are in Springfield. To kind of keep moving forward. I am a little tardy on that. I've had a lot of, just a lot more pressing issues going on here, and, you know, the building's still here and things have always been the same for the most part, so it hasn't really been, it could not be on the top of my priority list. So I did go ahead and purchase an AED. It was, Mary was nice enough to have the union call me back in June or July or whatever it was. And when I was talking to him, and he really explained and the emphasis on these things, that he made it so clear that, you know, this is more for, while we could stay on the list at that time, and I did request to be removed from the list at that time from him in our conversation. And he sent me all the information because we can buy them through central management system. Same people I purchased, the state of Illinois, purchased my salt and everything else. So we do have one on site at the loaner. It takes about 10 months to get one in is what they're telling us, because they're on back order. I mean, it's everything. It's on back order. So I'm gonna set up training for anyone in the staff that wants to do it coming up in the next few weeks, or any of you that are interested, you know. God knows the day I'm gonna drop over in here and go on up, you want to help me out. So, so yeah, so that's why it's not mounted or anything. I'm not gonna mount something that no one knows how to use in the building yet. And, so we went ahead and made that purchase. I know Mary reached out to me recently that they did have one. They did not take our name off the list. They did have one for us. But, I just felt like it would be better served for people that, you know, organizations or whatever that, you know, don't have the funding that we have. And, after learning more about it and where they were actually coming from. And he agreed 100%. If he, that it was a great idea when I talked to him, and his name escapes me, that was, kind of in charge of that for the firemen's union. So, yeah, he was very helpful that way. So, yeah, so there's one here, and so we'll be working on that. As far as then kind of alluding to what Mary was getting at, with staff changes, I'm losing one of my full-time employees. He turned in his 2-week notice today. I am not replacing him. So I'm gonna be taking that role on, but I will be hiring someone to do all my bookwork, do all my payroll, and do all of that, mostly from home. And then I'll be hiring, and that'll be very part-time. All the bookkeeping that like you're seeing today and all that will be done. For townships this size, usually the highway commissioner and the road district has their own doing all that, and then it's combined and kept separate, you know, so, that's the, I think for me, it's better. And my stronger suits are not in my office, they are out on my roads, so, yeah, you know, and so, and so I'm gonna bring someone into we're gonna share an office, because I won't be in there a lot, to just, you know, work with the person at home that's doing my books and my payroll and all that. And, cause my payroll it's never the same. I mean, it is a lot in the summer, but winter with overtime and so it's a constant thing. So that's what we're gonna be going that route with, kind of just completely redoing how we're doing things, and
Do you anticipate that impacting, yearly audit?
yeah, they will keep all the records for the yearly audit. So when we're notified that they're coming, we'll have everything together for them.
I guess would that result in two different audits or the same audit, just collecting information to different places?
From both, yeah, because everything's separated out anyway, so it's all, and they broke it down per fund. Yeah, and it's funny because when you talk to them, I've been to numerous of these kind of accounting type things at POI offices and other places, and even the accountants, Illinois Accountants Association doesn't understand why why townships and road districts are combined into one audit. When we're two separate forms of government, we're the only ones that file two separate levies, basically two separate forms of government. But the state legislators want to, and the comptroller's office that audits doesn't want to make a change. So that's, I have no issue with it. I mean, it's all broken down per fund, so. And quite frankly, with the books, I think it's just gonna be a lot.
And I just wanted to just tell you QuickBooks, so it'll be.
Yeah, because I pay for half of QuickBooks and everything here anyway, so, the road district pays for 50% of that, so. Yeah, and if not, we'll just bring in our own, if we want to separate that out, that's something we can discuss, so. Next, as far as, I looked over the agenda, if you guys want to go to POI's website, the whole list of everything going on in Springfield is on there. They will give you a copy when you get there, but it's, Township of Illinois is the website. I think I found it right on the front page, so, Tuesday night works best for me. If we all want to go out for dinner, I think that's, I have to go early Sunday. I have a highway commissioners meeting, at 11 in Springfield. So,
Is it over Tuesday or is it over
it's
Wednesday?
over Wednesday. Yeah. Or I'm sorry, it is over Tuesday. So it's Monday night. I wrote Tuesday, so Monday night. I apologize.
I was just making sure I had it straight.
I'll be back in.
I don't think I'll be there. I know I couldn't stay until Wednesday myself, but, so maybe that's where but yeah, so Monday night, if that works for anyone. When we get down there, I think I've got almost everyone's phone numbers, so I'll, reach out to you or whatever.
Yeah.
I think, well, both Chad and Lisa, that was the same restaurant we went to the last time, seemed to be okay, so.
I went to the website and there was something about flags and parade or something.
Yeah,
Are we gonna participate in that?
I think you had to register for that. It's a lot of hoopla, and the Springfield band's playing and it's yeah. It's exciting.
What, typically is the morning of Tuesday,
Yeah. like
right?
opening-
Right, so Evan, yeah.
On Monday.
Or maybe Monday.
I can't.
Yeah, well, yeah, Monday.
And I can't.
Yeah, well, and it's hard because it's been 2 years.
Right. And then this Monday, everybody goes. So you're saying you had to register for somebody to carry the flag and that you did not register for? Okay. Did we register for the 7:45 breakfast thing?
That's what I sent you a text about. Remember?
Right.
That's what that was.
Okay. Did we get a response?
You said, I think you said no.
If it wasn't a staff thing, yeah, I didn't just
Right.
want to be going.
Right, and so, no.
Oh, okay. All right. No offense, but good. I'm not.
And it's not a very good breakfast.
Well, I've been there before, yeah, and you get a lot of awards. I mean, it's good. I think it's good for people, maybe if you haven't seen it before, because they highlight the programs that people have. And, you eat the breakfast, it's not that great, but you see what other townships are doing. And in that regard,
Some of it is really interesting, what they are doing.
it is,
With very little resources. It is very interesting.
yeah. So I'm sorry, so Monday night,
Monday night,
Monday night.
unless you hear from me.
Oh,
We might be going through the drive-through at the McDonald's, but, no, I'm kidding. Moving on, if you, is it okay to move on?
Yes,
Finalize the sale of the truck. We're getting our new truck sometime in December should be, so finalize that through an IGA with Franklin Township Road District. For them to purchase the truck over the next 3 years, so they'll be putting $30-some thousand down this year, then about that same payment over the next 3 years to purchase the truck, which works out good for us in a lot of different ways. Also, made a partner with the village of Hinckley on trading off equipment. They have and I'll get to the next statement after this, but they have a leaf back. We need to upgrade one even more now than we did 24 hours ago. But their board is kind of in flux right now. They have a rotating president that instead of a mayor, Hinckley has a president. And so they're not sure, they want to sell it, but they're not sure they want to sell it. So he's like, just use it for a year and see how you like it. So we've gotten the majority of our leaf, but, and they're gonna borrow some stuff from us, and it's a basic intergovernmental agreement, says they can borrow stuff, we can borrow stuff, makes it all legal, everyone's got the same insurance, so finalize that. Getting to my next, so this morning on my way to Hinckley to pick up that IGA, I got a call from my staff that my truck was on fire at Oakwood Cemetery. And so the leaf back must have caused a spark inside of it, shot flame or shot something into the back of the truck full of leaves, started the leaves on fire, kind of scorched the top of the pretty new truck. And so they were able to dump it out. Fire department showed up to put out fire, hosed down the truck. Jeff was back over at Oakwood this afternoon with our big pump, weed sprayer thing full of water because the leaves started back on fire again. So I don't know if it was, I don't know how or what, I talked to the guy to come give me a quote to repaint the truck because it scorched not the truck itself, but the cap over the dump body. That makes any sense to you. It just burnt that lid. And luckily, ours is all metal. A lot of guys build them themselves. Most of the cities are built in plywood, and that can. So anyway, I reached out to the people of Benell Industries that built that truck to give me a quote on repainting it, turning it into Torma, the insurance carrier. He said there's been 22 leaf fires this year in trucks. So he said it's a high because of the warmer weather. And there's a bigger volume of leaves this year. I don't know what it is. We've already done the 2 streets that we do. Usually on a year, we average 1.5 loads. This year it was 3.5 loads. And maybe there's just more people. I mean, there was leaves everywhere. So Oakwood, I think we got about a load and a half left to get over there. I'm reluctant to go pick this stuff up before the plane goes out. So they might have to lay until next week until we're supposed to get some rain and snow next week. So, and that's that. And I'm going to be posting the job for the mowing the cemeteries, hopefully tomorrow. With the mowing IGA, I have to let Mary know whether or not we're able to mow again next year. So I have posted this, I have let her know by the end of this year. So I need to post that job. If you know anyone that wants to apply, it's gonna be like a $14 an hour starting pay. For someone they have to have a driver.
Someone has reached out to me about that, so I'll let them know once it's
Yeah.
posted.
I was making a note to check on the things down.
So I think with that, that's my whole list.
Do we have like an estimated timeline for the IGA?
I'm hoping to have a draft before December's meeting. But if it snows every day, you can pretty much check that off the list. Yes, but I'm hoping our committee will have to probably meet a couple more times to weed that out.
Okay.
Because I want to we went back and forth 7 times with the mowing IGA. I just paid a $3,300 attorney bill for that and some other things. But when I looked over the bill, it was scary how much I paid to go mow those cemeteries just to have an agreement. So I'm not willing to do that again. go back and forth that many times. So that's why this committee, I think, will solve a lot of those problems. I'm gonna put a cap on 3. It goes back and forth more than 3 times. I'm done. I mean, that's really what I'm gonna say. Because I think it's just a complete waste of tax dollars.
I feel like it should be a lot simpler. To come up with them right now.
Oh, I 100% agree.
A lot similar.
Simpler,
Simple.
like, I mean, you guys have been doing it for how long?
Well, I mean, it's basically just putting on paper what we're doing now.
Right.
If I remember correct, I believe leaves are hazardous material similar to cotton. Also, right, there's enough of them. Well, and they will. But
Really?
yeah, leaves are
In a pile.
hazardous material. Cotton, I know cotton is. It's
Okay.
hazardous material. If there's enough of it, it will, if there's enough weight, it'll actually create the heat and ignite.
Wow.
I didn't make it there for the fire department deal, but I mean, the guy, I mean, everything was soaking wet, so I assumed it was put out, but I mean, I know things will restart that way. It's a freak thing. I mean, you know, it's just, I felt like a complete fool until he said it's happened 22 other times, so, you know, maybe I'm,
Yeah.
so maybe I'm only one of 22 fools. So.
I happened to be on my way to the cemetery for other reasons this morning, and so imagine my surprise when I pulled in there and saw a fire truck and an ambulance. So.
Yeah, and all the guys, I mean, all 3 guys were over there, they're all safe, they all, you know, got out of the way and stuff, no one was hurt. That
It was
was really
contained to the back of like where the leaves go in, so the truck's out.
and we get that particular truck, we can take the whole body off. So they disconnected everything and got, you know, because you've got 35 gallons of diesel fuel, 60 gallons of hydraulic oil, spot flame, you know, in a closed-in container. Yeah, it could have, you know, and, yeah, I mean, you can burn the grass over there all you want. You're not gonna hurt them old headstones. A lot of them have been there for, a while, you know, they're all right. So, you know, I was more concerned about people and equipment, you know, first, and then, we can fix the grass. So. I'm sorry, that's it.
Assessor's report.
The deadline to file with the DeKalb County Board of Review is come and gone. It was November 7th. As of now, I believe there was only 70 complaints in the whole county. And I believe so far I only have 9 out of my 12,000 parcels roughly. So it's luckily been a relatively calm year as far as the complaints. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. We'll see going down the line as the market fluctuates going forward. Other than that, I really don't have anything.
Trustees reports, trustee Bradlow,
Nothing.
trustee King.
I think I probably did it all when I asked the questions. We didn't have a meeting with the city, and the students are gonna prepare for Thanksgiving and Friendsgiving. And then they have a week, and then they're out again. This is week 14 for us. It's only 16 weeks, and then they're gone to January something. I think from December 10th to January 18th or something like that. I'm looking at you thinking maybe you know, I don't know that.
That would have been my guess.
I do have, as normal. We didn't get a book of file,
What?
a bill.
The big,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Fine.
No, not this month. No, we're not paying bills.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for pointing that out.
I probably should get it. Go ahead. I'm just saying, I put
You are the one that brought it.
right.
All right. Anything else? Trustee McNabb,
Nothing.
trustee Thurman.
nothing here.
All right, moving on to bill paying. Can I get a motion to approve the October audit report in the amount of $887,413.98 and the November bills to pay in the amount of $148,543.83.
Oh,
Second.
Discussion?
I don't mind. Plus that everybody's being honest. Go ahead, Mary, don't mind me.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Ken,
And I'm first. Sure, yes,
are you the first person someone to look at?
right.
Trustee
Yes.
Bradlow,
Yes.
Trustee Thurman. Trustee McNutt,
Yes.
Supervisor Huss.
Yes.
5 ayes and 0 nays, the motion passes.
And can I get a motion to receive, file, and approve the treasurer's October budget report as presented in your board packet?
So move.
I'll second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee McNutt,
Yes.
Trustee Thurman,
Yes.
Trustee Bradlow.
Yes.
Trustee Ken.
Yeah.
Supervisor Huss.
Yes.
5 ayes and 0 nays, the motion passes.
Okay, next, new business, approval of the fiscal year 22 annual financial report. So there's a copy in what, the auditor provided tonight, and then there's a copy in your board book. And that is to approve that, so that can be submitted to the comptroller. So can I get a motion to approve the annual financial report? Oh, I'm sorry, unfinished business, there's none. Sorry.
Let's
Thank
make
you.
sure we're not jumping past something.
The day is one thing that we did think we were gonna, I thought this was the meeting that we were gonna, I guess we should address it, because this was the meeting that we were supposed to have the IGS to vote on it. And we just said move to December or later, right? I think, yeah, that would be fine. And I guess,
Oh, that, you want that under unfinished business?
I think, because that was our business from last time, I think.
Well, it hadn't been discussed in open session. We had worked on it and as the committee, that's what we said, that we were gonna present that at the November meeting, but so we don't have, that's why it's not on the.
Oh, yeah, I see, I'm sorry, I just thought it was,
That,
that answered my question. Yeah.
okay, all right. So, can I get a motion to approve the fiscal year 2022 annual financial report?
I will.
A second. Any discussion? And so we just need a voice vote on this. So all in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Approval of the DeKalb Township levy. So if you flip many pages forward, it's that time of the year where you have to submit it in December. So really, it's a lot of the same from last year. Only an increase of $3,000 to cover some of the additional expenses associated with our anticipated increases in insurance and payroll and that, but taking on a new staff member, we had accounted for that last year, but someone hired this year, didn't get someone hired, so took an increase of $3,000. So let's get the motion on the floor. Can I get a motion to approve the DeKalb Township levy?
Second.
Okay. Discussion about it? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Absolutely. Trustee Thurman. Yes. Trustee McNutt.
Yes.
Trustee Ken.
Yes,
And Trustee Bradlow.
Yes.
And Supervisor Huss.
Yes.
5 ayes and 0 nays, the motion passes.
Okay. Next, approval of ordinance 2022-005R, Road District Credit Card Policies and Procedures. Can I get a motion to approve this?
I will.
can we see it? I'm,
That's what,
Well,
It's on page 1.
we have a motion to bring it to the floor, and there's discussion.
Oh.
So we just got a motion. Well, Chad, did you want a second?
I'll second.
Okay. And now discussion.
All right, thank you, 'cause, man, I'm a little behind the time.
There's a lot extra in here.
Yeah, I noticed that, yeah.
Better than normal.
You said behind the levy?
Oh, that's it right there. Wait.
They're almost there.
Yeah, behind, I was going in the right direction.
So if you wanna,
So, yeah, I mean, it's basically, when the auditors were originally here, they asked about it. If we had one, for either the road district or township, or, I asked me if they had one for the road district. I was unaware of them. I, really was, reached out to John, the attorney, and, he said it's getting very more common with townships your size and townships that use credit cards. And it just, it's just a lot of language here that states, that you could be liable. There's a spending limit of $2,500. The sales tax to try to, if you are, as a user, if you make a purchase with sales tax, we have to do our best effort to, get that back, I will tell you that, and I think the auditors have been talking about the sales tax thing forever. It's, there's times where we're stuck on a road and I buy lunch because they don't get their lunch, and you go to Jimmy John's, well, I don't have a tax exempt sheet to get Jimmy John's. So that, they charge me tax, and so those kind of things, and that's very common. I don't think, next Tuesday for dinner or next Monday, whatever day I figure out, that would be a sales tax thing, that, so, there's the accountant's way of doing things, and then there's the normal human being's way of doing things, I guess, for lack of a better term. So,
well, in addition to that effect, like when I was in Milwaukee for that conference, I tried to use it and they wouldn't accept it. Because we.
out of state, they won't accept an Illinois, I mean, always put it there.
Yeah, because it's not
Tax
their
exempt,
tax, yeah. So I couldn't even use it there.
You couldn't use a credit card?
No, I couldn't.
Tax exempt. Oh, yeah.
They have to have, places have, our culvert companies in Missouri, and they always send us a bill with tax. You always pay it without and send them a letter.
I didn't know if you could do it at restaurants either. I thought it was only for like goods.
I've used it, Jimmy John.
Yeah.
They'll do it.
So, and for the most part, a lot of these, when we go, for instance, we use Franklin Township's Vermeer chipper. It was very dull when we cut down 3 trees. So we took it into Vermeer and had them sharpen it and tune it up. We've had it for 2 years and we don't own the darn thing. So anyway, I had them fix it. That, that was a $2,200 bill. And that we got, we took a tax exempt sheet and they keep it on file. Those kind of things. Sometimes I have to say, even me, if we stop and buy fuel on the road, you can't get sales tax deduction. From a regular gas station, I mean, you can't go in and say I'm tax exempt. They're gonna adjust the pump numbers, so, those kind of things, it's just common. So, I mean, you're more than welcome to read through it. Mary, you're more than welcome to use it for the town and make any adjustments,
That was gonna be my next question.
so to
Yeah.
speak, so,
Just send us to Brad.
and if you look on the very back page, there will be an acknowledgement of anyone that carries the credit card. I'm the only credit card carrier for the district. Jody carries a credit or has a credit card that will soon not be a credit card or hers, but it makes purchases for both sides, the township and the road district. She'll sign off on this. All my staff will sign this because if they have to go someplace, for instance, Farm and Fleet, Lowe's, we don't have accounts there. We have our tax exempt information there. So you go in and give them the road district's number, it's tax exempt. So I will have everyone, they just take my credit card, my township. credit card. I don't know how Mary's would be, I don't know if we all got new ones now or what, but mine says DeKalb Township, and then underneath it has my name.
The only suggestion I would have, and take it either way, is that when you, a lot of people sign documents without reading all the way through it. And,
No, when I do stuff with my staff, I redo them.
Oh, you read it.
So
Oh, yeah.
they understand exactly what they're.
yeah, and that would be my thing, like, have them watch a video. This is how you use the
Yeah.
credit card under these.
Well, and I think that way, when they, some are more thorough than others about this stuff. But they know with me that when they're signing something, they're liable for something. Pretty much, or that I've changed something, so, yeah, and this might be something we adjust over time, and Brad might have a lot different idea on this than John did, it's kind of the great thing of having two attorneys, so.
Do you, on page 4, do you want to adjust that date? You want that noted in the minutes?
Might speak right over it.
Today's the ninth.
Oh, it's the ninth, yeah, yes, I would like to, so, to be adopted on the 9th of November. Just not talking so highly about Karen.
Was $4,500 like a reasonable amount of what you spent?
Well, like I said, $2,200 out of the machine, picked up. We rented a saw that could cut through 14 inches of asphalt. And that was an $1,800 rental for a week. So it's not uncommon for us to be up in those bigger numbers, If you have to go buy even a culvert can cost, or a plastic pipe can cost. I am exempt from this. I will sign the bottom of this, but, as an elected, this is for employees. And you really should know that about any of these things. For the most part, whether it's a policy for the employees. The three of us that carry these, whether it be the credit card or most everything, regardless of personnel policies, those things. I try to follow, I've used it for more than, I think my card has a well over $16,000 limit.
Okay.
All right, so do you want just a voice vote on this or roll?
Yeah, and voice vote's fine with me.
So, all in favor of approval of the credit card policy? Say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. And then the last thing under new business is with the new year approaching, presenting the next year's hours and schedule for the board meeting and the holidays. So can I get a motion to approve the 2023 DeKalb Township building hours, board meeting, holiday closing calendar? I will make that motion. Discussion. Just want to point out that as a result of some conversation that was had in the last building IGA committee meeting, that's why something new to this is the DeKalb, the township building hours of operation, 8:30 to 4:30, just to be approved annually, that's what our open to the public hours are.
That's a good idea.
And so, any discussion about it?
Hey, happy to see Juneteenth down there. Yeah, we're concerned about Columbus Day. I think we're working to change that as a nation. A lot of people have.
It's Indigenous
People
People
Day.
Day and Columbus Day, same day. One, and like all the schools were closed for election. They're open on Veterans Day. We have the Veterans Day off here. It's just so.
And the university we work Veterans Day.
But we're off Veterans Day, because
Yeah, we are.
And the university was off for
We-
election.
I mean, for the most part, this follows the counties.
You all weren't off for the,
we're not off for election day, but we are off on Veterans Day. So we're the opposite of you this week,
yeah,
You-
well, yeah.
right? You had yesterday off.
We're off, we work on Veterans Day because the schools are off. Ironically, it's the day that they bring students to the school because there's usually an open house.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't know who made that plan,
I don't know.
but that's.
Well,
how
every
it
single
typically
school
works.
board does.
Yeah.
Say that again?
Every single school board makes that.
And Audi Calvin Sickle.
Oh.
Together.
Well, and I learned that some schools, I think Chavana, they don't take off for King's Day. At least they didn't. I don't know what they do now. Say that again?
Indian Creek School District.
Is that what it is? Cause I said Chavana, okay, Indian Creek.
Back in my day, there was a Shabbat and Waterman School District.
Oh, okay, now it's,
They're called
Now
Indian.
they're-
okay. All right, well, we learned a lot sitting around the table together.
But the only, it's still a discussion on the side.
Yeah.
The only thing I would just say is that the Columbus Day, that what we talked about, if we can change that so that we can be respectful of all of the, with this Columbus Day / Indigenous People Day, that's all.
Okay, yeah, we can,
Yeah, / both.
okay,
That's only, other than, perfect.
okay.
Some people like to take my birthday off, but I wouldn't make
I
that.
like to take your birthday.
Yeah, well, ironically, this year it will be off, because it's the same day as Lincoln.
Really?
Yeah, February 13th, so
Why
I think
not?
Lisa and Lincoln, but you don't have to write that down.
Last Lincoln.
Yeah, you don't have to write that down. Yeah, I'm just honored that nobody will be working on that day.
Okay, so, all in favor of approving the schedule? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. And then approval of minutes of the regular Board of Trustees meeting, October 12th, 2022. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes for October 12th, 2022? Okay, no motion. Just minor discussion on that. There were some errors in that. I reached out for that, some of the errors to be corrected. Happened a couple months in a row now. If we could maybe just read through them and, always refer to, just because it's a record forever of these
Yeah.
meetings. So we'll put that back on the agenda for next month.
Sure.
All right. Skipping down to other business, next regular meeting is December 14th, 2022. So with that, can I get a motion to adjourn? Second,
Second.
I would second, it, sorry.
Oh, man.
Everyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion, meeting is adjourned at 7:30.
Don't even.
Yeah, you leaving on Sunday?
Saturday.